So could we turn to your personal routine? Have you measured your epigenetic age, and what does that look like?
Yes, I have. So I actually have a website that I just launched today.
Oh,
So
right.
good timing, called slowmyage.com. I'm
Hmm.
also on Instagram and Twitter as slowmyage, where I talk about my biological outputs, including my epigenetic age and what my routine is. So if anyone's curious about what I'm about to talk about and wants to dig in further, they can go to slowmyage.com. I'm 38 now. When I first ran the tests, I was still 37. And so I got a number of outputs. The first I'll mention is telomere age. So my telomere age came out the most surprising. In fact, I contacted the lab that ran my samples, and they're a very well known, very well respected lab. And they came back and said, your results must be flawed. Like, I'm sorry about this. Let me get back to you. And the next day, they got back to me and said, we have double and triple checked your blood sample, the genetic sequencing, so on and so forth. And we are surprised but 100% confident that your result is accurate. And my telomere age, I still can't believe it, but it's 7.8 years old. So that is an implied reduction in terms of rate of aging of 79% slower aging, minus 29.4 years. Now, the other results are not as extreme as that. So if we go into epigenetic pace of aging, the Dunedin POAM or PACE clock, which is looking at your pace of aging at any given point in time. Many people in the field will argue that this is the most accurate epigenetic clock out there, as opposed to telling you what your epigenetic age is, where there's some variability across different clocks and so on. This clock, which has followed people for, I believe, 45 years now, based in New Zealand, and they have this cohort that has been compliant and has been checking in every year for 45 years. That's how they've been able to come up with this algorithm. And that one actually comes back as 31% slower aging. So that would imply approximately 12 years or so younger than my chronological age. Next is the true age clock. And this is a PC clock. I'll mention PC a few times. This stands for principal component. This is a new statistical method where they're actually able to increase the accuracy by 20-fold. So if you have 10 subjects, it's 20-fold more accurate, or it's the equivalent of having 200 subjects rather than just 10 subjects in terms of the statistical approach that they take. So it's much more accurate. And this one comes back as 23.6 years old, or minus 13.6 years, 37% slower aging. The lab that ran these results has said that they haven't ever seen results as significant as mine before. So I like to think maybe I'm doing something different. Maybe that's Novos core. I like to think, but there's other lifestyle things I do as well. I won't go through all of the results. I've got more than a dozen here. I'm reading them right now, but a couple to note. Let's say the average of 7 different epigenetic clock outputs puts me at 28.8 years old, or minus 8.4 years, which implies 23% slower aging. The Levine Pheno age clock, which looks at your hematological markers, your blood markers, that puts me at 20.2 years old. That's minus 17 years, and that's 46% slower aging. And then I do some other things at home, which are age correlated at least. So like pulse wave velocity, I measure every morning. That's 5.8 meters per second. That's that of, on average, a 24-and-a-half-year-old. My VO2 max is 55.5. That is elite status for someone my age. But if we look at what it's considered good for, that is someone in their mid-20s, 26.2 years old. And then I also do the facial AI that I mentioned on the face age on Novos. That comes back as 28 years old. So Overall, across all of these markers, this isn't scientifically valid, but just averaging out like what all of these results come out to, it comes out to 25.6, which is 11.6 years or 31% slower aging.
Wow, that is really good. It seems like quite a variation as well, because they're all meant to be measuring your biological age. I mean, and I know they're based on different criteria, but I mean, I guess what it points to is that we really don't know what biological age is right now.
Yeah, well, yeah. So a couple of things to consider is that like earlier generation epigenetic clocks were trying to, they were being tuned on your actual chronological age. So they were trying to see how old are you, like can we predict your chronological age by these biomarkers? Whereas later generation clocks are more based on your mortality risk. So, and that's actually a better way to do things, right? Like if I'm 38 years old, but I have the mortality risk of someone 45 years old, that means my risk of dying has more than doubled. So that is what we should care more about. And so later generation clocks are going to look at this mortality risk and therefore have different results, but also they tend to be more accurate because they're using different methods. Like rather than linear regression for earlier clocks, some newer clocks are using AI, for example. And so I would say in general to look at principal component clocks that are newer algorithms that look at mortality risk. Those are three things that are pretty significant for consideration of which clocks to put more faith into than others.
Right. So could you talk a little bit about your kind of daily routine in terms of like when do
Sure.
you when do you eat or exercise?
Sure. So, yeah, the website will be the best place to see all of the details. I haven't published those posts yet, but in the weeks and months ahead, I'll publish a lot about what I do each day. High level, I would say every once a week. Actually, right now I'm fasting for 24 hours, so I'll do a 24-hour fast Wednesday dinner until Thursday dinner once a week. I also, in terms of my eating schedule, I try to compress that as much as possible. I'm not as disciplined as some who have one meal a day. I exercise a lot, and so I find that I need to fuel myself a little bit more, and I can't like squeeze that many calories into my stomach in just one single meal. So I tend to have typically two meals. Sometimes I'll throw in a protein shake in the mix, but it's typically a 19-5 intermittent fast. So 19 hours fasting, 5 hours eating. So that might be like 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. or 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. Sometimes, again, like if I exercised a lot, maybe I did a 7-mile run and I need a protein shake or something. I might expand that as far as 16-8 at the max. I'm very low carb during the week. I'm not keto, but I probably fall in and out of ketosis in terms of my fasting schedule and the low carbs. But I'm not following a ketogenic diet per se. Although I have in the past, I've had negative biomarker results from it, and I've also just kind of felt like my hormones were off, like my libido disappeared, and I wasn't as energized when I went on a prolonged keto diet. I find that when I throw carbs back in, either on the weekends or in the evenings, I feel a lot better. So during the daytime, I focus better with very low carbs. And so I'm eating mainly vegetables, some fatty fish like salmon or sardines. I'll have, sometimes I'll throw some beans into the mix, which have some carbs, but mostly fiber. I'll have eggs, as I mentioned earlier, for the choline. The egg yolk has a lot of vitamins, especially choline I care about. I'll have some seeds. I don't eat nuts. I have a sensitivity to nuts. They make me fall asleep within a couple of hours of eating them. But I'll have sunflower seeds and pumpkin seeds, which are great for nutrients like vitamin E, magnesium, and so on. I have very dark chocolate, like 95 or 85% dark chocolate. I have fermented foods a lot, like sauerkraut or kimchi, and a little bit of fruits, mostly berries, because of the beneficial longevity effects that berries can have from some of their polyphenols. But Occasionally, I'll treat myself with things like mangoes and so on. I do cheat every once in a while, so I'm not religious about this on the weekends with my girlfriend. I might have. She's from Italy, so pizza, of course, makes its way into our diet every once in a while. But if I am having significant carbs, I'll take a carbos, which is a prescription drug that will slow down and reduce the absorption of starchy carbs. I believe it restricts an enzyme from being able to break down the carbs as much, and so that actually regulates my blood sugar a little bit better. And I use a continuous blood glucose monitor to monitor all of that. I exercise every day. On average, I'm walking, I think something like close to 7 miles a day, either walking or running on average. So it's like a marathon once every, I think it was like 3.7 days or something. So very active on my feet. I used to weight lift 5 days a week. I've actually reduced that to only 2 days a week. And I've maintained my muscle mass, which is good to see. My strength is still there. My muscle mass hasn't changed. My body weight's the same. And then supplementation, of course. So Novos Core and Novos Boost, I take every day. Boost in the morning, Core with my 2 meals. And then I take a lot of different supplements for general health, like I mentioned. I don't take a multivitamin because I haven't found any that have the right forms of ingredients at the ratios or dosages that I would like. So I actually buy each ingredient individually, which is a pain. And every Sunday I spend 30 minutes having to sort through all of these pill bottles, but it is what it is, and that's also part of my routine.
Cool. And it seems to be working. I mean, from your previous talking about your age. So congratulations. It seems to be going very well. Where can people find Novos Labs on the web, and also your own site?
Sure. So novoslabs.com. We're also on social as Novos Labs on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook. I think we're also now on TikTok. So you can find us everywhere as Novos Labs. And we have a great blog. So if nothing else, as part of being a public benefit corporation, even if you don't want to purchase our supplements, I encourage everyone to go to our website, take the quiz to learn more about what you're doing right and wrong. Read our blog articles. There's so much you can do for free. There's so much you can do to improve your longevity without spending a cent. And so I encourage people to take a look at that. And then if people care to know more about what I'm personally doing, they can go to slowmyage.com. And that's also on Instagram and Twitter, slowmyage.
Excellent. So thank you very much. Chris, thank you for joining us today.
Of course. Thank you for having me.